Thanksgiving, which for us here at Trinity, we feel a little bit more of these seasons and holidays because we have so much of the school schedule going on, and our students are starting to prepare for Thanksgiving break next week, both in the college and the academy. And we're going to do some of our devotional time around that theme of Thanksgiving. And I think we have a lot of reasons to be thankful, starting to feel like a little bit like fall here in Florida, if there is such a thing, and enjoying a little bit of this nice, not so hot weather. And so all of these things kind of just make us think about that Thanksgiving season. If you're following us on Facebook, social media, if you would just either like or share, and that allows us to connect with as wide a variety of people as possible. One of my favorite Psalms that is a go-to for me in this season is Psalm 67. And it is it's really a tremendous song of thanksgiving. Let me read it to you, and I'm going to make just a couple of quick comments today that I think will be a help to all of us. God be merciful unto us and bless us, cause his face to shine upon us, Selah, that thy way may be known upon the earth, thy saving health among the nations. Let the people praise thee, O God, let all the people praise thee. O let the nations be glad and sing for joy, for thou shalt judge the people righteously and govern the nations upon the earth. Selah, let the people praise thee, O God, let all the people praise thee. Then shall the earth yield her increase, and God, even our God, shall bless us. God shall bless us, and all the ends of the earth shall fear him. There's a number of themes in this psalm that I just love, and I think they really do fit together. You have this theme of blessing, where God just pours out his blessing upon his people. Then you have this idea of the nations, or really you see it, the ends of the earth, verse 7, saving health among all the nations, verse 4, oh, let the nations be glad. And so when you step back for that for a moment, you think, well, what does it mean for God to bless a people? And then what's it mean for that blessing to impact the nations? And oftentimes I think we forget what blessing means to us and what God's blessing expects, or if you will, demands from us. The reality is that the blessing that we enjoy is not just material or physical, although I think that's certainly included in that. In fact, the book of Proverbs says, the blessing of the Lord, it maketh rich, and he addeth no sorrow with it. It is the eternal and spiritual blessing that God has given to us that really demands that we think about what does God want us to do, and what does God want us to be as a blessed people. If you're a typical person with a more secular view of life, you think, hey, the more God gives me, the more I should keep and have for myself. And underneath that, there's this attitude of pride. I deserve everything I have, and everything I have, I've gotten as a result of something that I've earned or deserved. So I'm gonna have a tendency to hold on to that and keep it. A more religious person might respond this way to God's blessing, and that is, the more I do for God, the more God blesses me. And eventually, if I do that enough, God becomes a means to an end. And so I use God to get things instead of using things to worship and serve God. So both of those have a fault line, if you will, with them. There's a third response, and that is that God blesses me, not because I deserve it, but because he is so, so good in my life. And the goodness of God, his blessing in my life, demands that I live and act and serve with a generosity and with a others view of life. I take what God has given me and I seek to bless others. So God, be merciful unto us. This is a prayer, and bless us and cause your face to shine upon us, that thy way may be known upon the earth, that thy saving health may be among all the nations. So what's the purpose of a blessed life? Well, really simple. The purpose of a blessed life is simply this, is that we're to preach the gospel. that we're to make saving health known among all the people there. I call this really a reflex action of the gospel. A reflex is really just something that you do instinctively, almost that you cannot help to do. And because God has been good to us, we would want that goodness of God, particularly the salvation in Jesus Christ, to be known among all people, saving health, and the nations may be glad, and that they, all the ends of the earth, shall be blessed and fear him. So not only are we to preach the gospel, that's the purpose of God's blessing, but we're to do justice. So look what he says in verse 4, "Oh, let the nations be glad and sing for joy, for thou shalt judge the people righteously and govern the nations upon the earth." See, real joy, real indication that you know where your blessing comes from is that you are acutely aware that justice really is never going to come through political strength, military strength, economic policy. It's going to come when people, the people of God, pour themselves out in righteousness and serve the greatest purposes of God, which then allows us to see this as the purpose of God's blessing is actually community, where that there is a oneness, a universal recognition of the goodness of God, and the people, all the ends of the earth shall come to fear of the Lord. So that's the purpose of God's blessing. I want you to think about this. Are you using what God has given you and blessed you with to bless others, to do good in the world, to think about the saving help that God wants to make known to all the nations of the earth? That leads us to a second thought, and that is the joy of a blessed life. You see it here, verse 3. Let the people praise thee. Let the nations be glad and sing for joy. You say, what's that joy? Well, this is a joy that comes from a heart that is grateful, a heart that is glad. I love this story in the book of Luke where the disciples come to Jesus to report on what they had done by ministry. Jesus had sent them out 2 by 2 to do ministry. And they come back and they talk about the dead have been raised and the sick have been healed and the demons have been cast out. And in fact, they actually say it this way, even the demons are subject unto us. And Jesus' response to all that is, notwithstanding in this rejoice not, that the spirits are subject unto you, but rather rejoice because your names are written in heaven. But Jesus just did a whole upside down, inverted, inside out, countercultural view about life. You don't find your complete and ultimate joy in even the good things that happen to you in the moments that you live in this world. It's because you have a certain, sure, fundamentally guaranteed future in heaven because of the salvation that you have in Jesus. That's where your real joy is. And so there is the purpose of a blessed life. There's the joy of a blessed life. But then finally, you have this idea of the hope of a blessed life. Look at verse 6. It says, then, which actually is a point in time reference, then shall the earth yield her increase, and God, even our God, shall bless us. God shall bless us, and all the ends of the earth shall fear him. This then actually signals in verse 6 and 7 a future event. Something that we're not going to experience in this now time, but in the future. And in the future, there's going to be a restoration. Jesus is going to come again, and he's going to usher in what we call the millennial kingdom. And when we do, or when he does, we're going to see that our hope never really was in the things of this world. Our hope is in the world to come. When Alexander the Great was setting out on his conquest of Asia, he talked about and did some research on the needs of those that were going to go with him to battle. And most of them were going to leave behind dependents and families, people that they cared about and who they were responsible for. And so he took all of his crown estates and he divided all of those revenues among those that were responsible for this journey. When he had nearly depleted all of his resources, his general came to him and said, "What did you reserve for yourself Alexander. And Alexander's response was classic. He said, I've reserved for myself hope. What he was doing, he was sacrificing everything in the moment because there was this hope that he had for this future. Well, I'm telling you, we have a hope, and our hope is not in this world. And we ought to be willing to give up everything in this world because of the hope that we have in Jesus Christ. Only the gospel will move you to the place where you're willing, that you're able, that you're desirous to live with such a thankful, blessed life that you're willing to give everything up for the sake of the gospel. I hope that will encourage you today. And as you think about Thanksgiving, think about the ways that God has blessed you and that God has made his blessing real in your life so that you, in turn, can be a blessing to others and to the cause of Jesus Christ. God bless you. I hope you have a great day as you serve the Lord in this Thanksgiving season.